Hello there. Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to ask a short favor. If you're interested in either of the two books that I have written and am about to release, head on over to my website at theanxioustruth.com/books. There you can learn about both books, one of which is free, and you can get on my mailing list to be notified when each book is released and how you can get it. I would really appreciate that. Okay, let's get rolling. What is up, dudes and dudettes? It is episode 100 of the podcast. 100 of these. It's only taken me like 5 years. Consistency, Drew. Good job. I have a guest in the office with me, so I'm not laughing at myself, I promise, which would be completely ludicrous. But yeah, so it's episode 100, and I promised that I would try and do something cool, and I think I have something cool. So sitting with me is, and thanks you guys for hanging in, by the way, we're 100 episodes, and listen to me rant and say silly things into a microphone. So sitting in the office with me, as she does almost every day, because we're office mates, is my lovely good friend, Kendra Beavis. Kendra has an amazing journey to talk about that will not directly relate to the anxiety thing that we talk about, but there are so many parallels that I'm pretty sure you guys are going to dig this. You're going to eat this up. So Kendra and I also happen to be office mates because she's like my web design goddess, like guru extraordinaire. We work on all kinds of projects together. We've shared office space now for 5 years or whatever it is. And yeah, so we hang out together every day anyway. And this is a conversation we got into a couple of days ago that I'm like, oh, we got to talk about this on mic. So here we are. So Kendra, thank you. Hello. I have to unmute you though. I could edit that out, but that would involve, again, me sounding more professional, and I ain't going to start doing that now because I've been unprofessional for 5 years. So that was my fault. I had Kendra's microphone turned off. So again, thank you for taking the time. Of course. This is always so much fun. So
happy 100 and happy birthday.
Yes, today is my birthday. Before we started recording, Kendra said, am I allowed to tell people that it's your birthday? But by the time you guys listen to this, it was not my birthday anymore. But there you go. Thank you, Kay. Appreciate it. So here's what we want to talk about today. Part of what I hear people say all the time, we talk about all this stuff where the way to get over these anxiety disorders. And you know, you've heard me talk about this stuff. I've been on Kendra's podcast. So at the end, we'll tell you where to find all Kendra's amazing, awesome stuff. You guys are going to listen. But, you know, we talk about doing really hard things, going directly into fear instead of running from it and doing the opposite of what your survival instincts tell you to do. These are the way we overcome these disorders. And aside from the fear, probably the biggest obstacle that I hear people express is belief. They just don't believe that they're capable of making this dramatic change, going and doing hard and scary things instead of running from doing them. They just don't believe that they can do it and believe in themselves for whatever reason. So let's talk about how that changed for you, except your journey wasn't necessarily anxiety or depression related. Yours was, I'm going to let you describe it more than anything else. I'm not going to put words in your mouth.
I mean, I kind of have two different journeys that I went through. One being, I wouldn't say an eating disorder, but certainly struggles with eating and growing up with preconceived notions about how I should look and what I was capable of and what was healthy. And the second one was my other journey through alcohol. So, I mean, both are addictions. Mm-hmm. I don't think I looked at my eating as an addiction until probably very recently.
Right.
But so just having an addictive personality in general, it was something that I had to find, people to look at and watch their journey to be inspired to know that I could do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, we were talking about the other day, some of the things with the eating. Yeah, food
habits.
Yeah, I mean.
And for the record, you guys obviously can't see Kendra because this is audio. There was much less of her than there used to be.
Yeah, I mean, well, you met me 5 years ago.
Yes.
You know, I was probably somewhere in the middle of not the height of my weight gain, but certainly not the lowest either. Yeah. And I hadn't really made any concrete choices at that point or changed my beliefs about myself.
Yeah.
So now where I am today, I 100% believe that I am this person. I am a skinny person, and I had to change that vocabulary and story inside my head to get here. Because I think before the story was, well, I'm overweight and I'm always going to be overweight and always that's my struggle, that's my fight. Where today I have shifted that mindset and now I say I'm a skinny person and I just have to shed this weight. So kind of resetting my brain to think, okay, well, that's where we need to get back to. That's our normal instead of being overweight being my normal and fighting that mindset.
Which makes perfect sense. So if we go back 5 years ago when you and I met, you were still in the midst of some bad food habits.
For sure.
Yeah. And you were also in the midst of some alcohol habits that I would have never known if you didn't tell me. You were hiding it really, really well.
I hid it all.
Incredibly well.
Nobody knew.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the alcohol, nobody knew that. I mean, it's so much harder with food because you can see it.
Right.
Like people see you packing on the weight.
Yeah.
But with alcohol, you can hide that.
We worked together daily for a long time, and I would have never known that was a problem ever in a million years. Yeah. So some of the stuff that you talked about doing, we don't have to go into the specifics necessarily of the habits, but some of the conversation we're having was enlightening because of like, oh yeah, I used to do this and I would do this. Some really almost extreme behaviors when it came to food. And I know we talked about some of the drinking stuff. Yeah. And I think the main thing to relate it back to the audience today and the people who are listening today is your habits were one set of habits. These were, you were maybe engaged in some unhealthy behaviors, but now you don't. Yeah. Like you are a completely different person. You look different. You are happy now. You're healthy now. You're like, I thought you were happy and healthy then until now I know you now. Yeah. So the change in you is astounding over the course of like the last 3 years. It's amazing why you were compelled to do those things then. How are you not doing them now? So my audience needs to start doing things. So it's the reverse for them. Right. But for somebody who is not doing the things they know they need to do, they need to start doing them. You were doing things you knew you shouldn't be doing, and you just stopped doing them. I know you didn't stop doing them by snapping your fingers.
The alcohol I did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard as hell.
Okay.
But I stopped overnight.
Okay.
I decided December 4th, 4 years ago, randomly, that I just have to stop this. And my trigger or my straw was seeing my kid's face and recognizing in them the fear that they had of my behavior. It didn't look like they recognized me.
Right.
And I was confusing them in the way I was acting because I was acting weird and not like myself. And I remember that when I was a kid watching my grandfather make that transformation every night. And he would come home and I would look at him and we had so much fun and he was so amazing. And then he would just be weird and different and kind of scary. And when I saw that in their little faces, I was like, I'm done forever.
Not good.
So then I was like, okay, well now how do I figure this out? How do I make this a sustainable choice? So, I mean, for me, it was very emotional, the change that I knew I had to make, and I had to make it in that instant, or I was about to lose everything, my business, my children, my marriage. It was all about to just go down the toilet.
Yeah.
So I was faced with very real life consequences, and it helped me make that change because I knew I absolutely had to. Mm-hmm. The food was a little different because I didn't actually have to. I wasn't faced with diabetes yet. I wasn't faced with some of these major health challenges that happen when you become morbidly obese, like I definitely was at one point.
Right.
It was a harder change to make because I didn't really want to make it.
Okay.
It's so much easier to just, fall prey to your habits. Mm-hmm. But once I got to a place where I was like, well, this really sucks. Like every day I'm tired. Every day I'm wasting time. And I knew if I made these changes, because I think a lot about the psychology of why people make changes and what choices they make, what's the whole thought process behind that. And I think a lot of the reason I look at that is so I can follow that lead. And for me, making a conscious decision to change my eating habits had to be because I believed I could actually do it every day, that it was something that was going to enhance my life in such a huge way that why would I not make that choice every single day?
I think what's interesting is if you take those two different scenarios that you were in, the alcohol situation and the food situation, they do combine to be the same situation that most of the people who are listening to you right now are in. So you had no choice with the drinking. So now you're confronted. That's it. This is the final straw. I must make that change. And for a lot of people who are dealing with the disorders that I address, they do hit that. Like, that's it. The family's going to fall apart. They're going to lose everything. They cannot live like this anymore, or they're just done. I'm just done with myself, right? So they have to make that change. Not that it's easy to make it. The food habit, the comfortable, like it's a lot more comfortable to just keep doing this. The same thing holds true with the avoidance and retreat behaviors that these people engage in. So you are hitting the nail right on the head over and over. So what was that belief thing? Like, suddenly you decide, well, I can change my eating habits. I'm going to voluntarily change something that I don't even know if I really want to. What made you then drive past the drive-through instead of going through the drive-through that first time? What was it?
I think for the beginning portion of it, I had to just pretend like I actually believed that I was that person. And I just had to keep living in the moment and making the right choice and not look at it like, oh, this is for the rest of my life. I can't have Taco Bell. I can't. I stopped looking at all the can'ts and all the things I was going to miss out on. And just for that minute, made the right choice, made a choice that was something that was going to help me hit my goal. Moment by moment. And for me, the goal is a moving target. I don't have like, oh, I hit, and I think that's the way I'd always looked at it before. Like, once I hit XYZ weight, then I'm done. But this is a lifelong journey. Yeah. And I'm having fun doing it. I think that's another big part of it. Like, you can't stop something with a new behavior that's completely unsustainable. Right. And I think in the past, every time I had done something to lose weight, it was completely, I mean, you've watched how many different things I tried and you were like, okay, many. Let's see how that goes. Right, many. Yeah. So now I think the biggest thing was finding something I was comfortable with, finding something that was super sustainable and that I could actually live every day. Yeah. Which I think, again, there are parallels there too, because in the end, people like me, we're never trying to just learn to get to the supermarket again. We're learning a new way to live, right? Which is kind of what you've done. I mean, the transformation maybe was based on food initially, but it has led to, it seems to me anyway, like that has opened the doors to a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah. So when you start to believe that you can solve that problem and you do see, even though you had to pretend to begin with. Yeah. Totally had to fake it. Like, what would somebody do that was not me? I'll just try to act like they did. They exactly. Let me see that. I really live by guideposts, by roadmaps. Like, I need to see someone who's done it before and then watch how they did it and like cherry pick, okay, these 10 people got to a place where I want to be. How did they do it? And take the pieces that make sense for me and make my own little map. Right. And for sure, like the initial beginning, I had no idea what I was doing. I was petrified. I remember sitting in my first kickboxing class and like completely having the realization like, oh my God, I've never taken any sort of gym class before. What the hell am I doing? Yeah. So I really just had a lot of faith and I knew I wasn't going to let myself down. And then it got to the point where it was like, I didn't have to fake it anymore. I actually was doing it. Yeah. So there was it was just like, holy crap, I am this person. Yeah. I'm there. I'm good. You had to become that person that maybe in the past you didn't believe you were. Yeah. You had to become that person by just acting like that person, even when you didn't feel like that person. Yes. Yeah. 100%. Which is, I mean, you could have been on any one of my podcasts talking about this, even though you're talking about a different topic, because in the end, in the beginning now, you start to act like, I'm just going to act as if. I'm going to fake it here. I'm going to act like somebody that I read an article about or I read this blog, so I'll do what that person did. Yeah. You got to feel uncomfortable or unsure or afraid. Totally uncomfortable, and also like the weird reactions I would get from other people. Like, you're not that person. That was something I also had to kind of ignore, and I actually took like a step back from my normal circles just to get comfortable in this new skin I was in. Yeah. To just come back out and say, look, well, yes, this is who I am now. So you had some pushback. 100. Yes. Like, wait a minute. Well, the alcohol was funny because every time I would tell someone like, okay, so I'm an alcoholic and I stopped drinking, and their reaction 9 times out of 10 was, well, I don't have a problem. I'm fine. Yeah. So that was interesting. And I honestly took about a year off from really socializing because when you make such a huge change, you also have to kind of redefine who you are and figure yourself out again.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, without alcohol, it was like, well, am I fun? Am I funny? Am I enjoyable to be around? Like,
right.
I had to figure that out again. And it turns out I am. I'm pretty great without alcohol.
You're right. I love it. But I think this is so interesting because, again, a very common theme that comes up is, well, who am I without this anxiety?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I without, this is who I am. This is how everybody knows me. And people start to go down this road a little bit and they get pushed back on that.
Yeah.
So sometimes somebody starts to get better, becomes more independent, and people don't like that.
No, it's like you play this role.
Right.
And when you don't play that role in people's lives, it gets weird. Lines get blurred. And it's almost like, I remember in high school, like everyone had this position they were in.
Right.
Like you were this person, you were the jock, you were the nerd, you were the, whatever.
Yeah.
What's that movie?
No, I think you got him.
Yeah. And, when you are growing up, of course you're changing, but I grew up in a very small high school. You weren't allowed to change. You were that role, and you were that role until college.
That was it.
And then you could kind of be who you wanted to be.
Yeah.
And it's very similar. Like anytime you have to redefine yourself. I mean, I got divorced about 11 years ago, and it was another like huge defining shift where I had to come out to the world as now I'm a single mom. And, a lot of people get uncomfortable with big changes like that, and you kind of have to present yourself with confidence. And if you can't, maybe just take a step back and then come out with that confidence.
But that confidence, you couldn't just decide to be confident, I'm guessing.
No,
if I'm just going to decide to be confident, you have to actually act into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it took some time to like prove different things to myself. Like with the alcohol, I had to prove to myself that I could be social and be fun.
Right.
That was a big thing. Am I fun?
Yeah. So, I mean, you are willingly going through these, uncomfortable situations now.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to stop engaging these food habits. I'm going to get some pushback from people who don't like that I'm changing necessarily, or maybe not that they don't like it, but it makes them uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And then, so that sort of stuff. But meanwhile, in the end, your willingness to sit in that discomfort and say, well, this doesn't feel right at the moment, but I'm just going to trust that it is.
Yeah.
And it'll become my new normal.
I always knew the decisions I was making were the best thing to make my life better. And I had to sort of squelch the things that were coming at me and all those ideas of, well, you're not that person. You're not good enough. You can't do that. We're always big boned and you're never going to be skinny.
Yeah.
I had to just put all that stuff aside because it wasn't my stuff.
Right.
It was other people's opinions, and other people form opinions about you based on their own biases, based on their own fears, based on tons of stuff that's theirs, but none of that's mine. And I don't have to own any of it.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I'm going to use a really old phrase, but misery loves company is true in many instances.
100%.
So, and I think, you guys that are listening and, we've been on this together now for 5 years and 100 episodes. It's a real thing, like for people that were in my situation, my listener situation right now, because you start to form circles of people who have similar problems. You sort of comfort each other to a certain extent. It becomes acceptable to not go out. It becomes acceptable to avoid life. It becomes acceptable to be maybe heavy or drink too much.
Yeah.
You all like kind of hide, each other from the hard truth. But then when you start to not do that anymore, I think that's when it starts to become uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And did you feel isolated during any time in these moments?
Purposely isolated myself.
You had to do that.
I had to, because the circle that I was surrounded by were people that supported my bad habits. So when I moved away from that, not only did I feel like they didn't want to be around me anymore because I was almost like a mirror.
Right.
I just needed to kind of take a step back and figure out, okay, well, where are the healthy relationships in my life and who supports what I'm doing now? And so now, having confidence in my decisions and being where I'm at, there are still people in my life that don't support what I'm doing, but I'm okay with that. There may be family members that I love dearly, but they're just on their own journey and don't quite understand where I'm at or why I do what I do.
Right.
And so I just sort of, love them despite that and know that, someday maybe they'll get there and maybe they won't.
Yeah, makes sense. So did you ever find another common thing that comes up is, I want to go back to the belief in a minute, but because I want to really hammer that home. But the other thing is, did you ever worry that it would be so disruptive to your family and support system that you would lose it? I hear that often. Like
lose my confidence?
No, that you would lose all the people in your life. I hear this all the time. I'm making these changes. I'm doing these hard things. Did you ever feel like you were being selfish? It's really a two-part question. When you're concentrating on yourself, sometimes people have a hard time. And you're one of the most giving people that I know. Like you're taking care of other people is your jam. But now you got to take care of yourself. So did you ever feel like I'm being really selfish here? I'm not paying attention.
No,
never
honestly,
felt that
no.
way. Good.
I've done so much reading and so many years of study with all sorts of different types of, coaches and leaders. And I knew that like taking care of myself was the most important thing. Otherwise I can't take care of other people.
That's super valuable.
Yeah. Without my mental health, without my physical health, like I'm useless to all these people that I want to help.
Right.
And my goal in life is to just make the world a better place. So if I can't be healthy, how can I do that?
So let's talk about like beating yourself up. Did you ever find yourself doing that either before you made those changes or not? Another theme that comes up all the time that I think you have a parallel here with is, but I've been such a bad mom. I don't know if I've ever heard you think of yourself that way, but we make mistakes in life. We put ourselves in bad situations. We regret certain things but I just feel so bad about this. I can't help but feel bad. I'm stuck in the guilt of the way I used to be. Did you ever have to wrestle with any of that?
I don't really struggle with guilt. I find that it's just something you have to learn from. If you made a choice you're not happy with, or if you've spent years doing something that's not, productive to whatever it is you want to achieve, you have to let it go. I mean, if you sit there and harbor on that, you're wasting time. Like that doesn't serve you at all.
Yeah.
I've definitely made some poor choices, and on occasion, and I think I spent some time apologizing too. Like my husband is incredible, and he spent the first, 4 years of or maybe 2 years of our marriage struggling with a wife who had a pretty serious alcohol problem, and it was not what he signed up for, but him holding his ground and supporting me and helping me through that. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely apologized to him.
Yeah.
Other than that, I can't live there. I have to move forward, and I'm making great choices today, and I'm giving what I can back today. So I can lean on that. And
as crazy as it sounds, like the bad choices taught you things. Without the bad choices, you couldn't be making the good choices now.
No, I would never, ever be where I was today if it wasn't for every single misstep or mistake, because you have to learn from everything that you do.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we learn lessons from everything being sunshine and rainbows.
No.
There's no lesson in that.
I mean, there's so many things where I am now that I never in my life, ever, when I got married, it was going to be for life, because, that's just this fairy tale I told myself. And when I got divorced, I was shocked. Yeah. I had no idea that I was going to make that choice, but it had to happen. And it taught me so much about who I am, who I want to be, the kind of life I want to lead, and the partner I wanted to live with.
Yeah. So I think, the parallels here are, if you're still struggling with these problems, these anxiety problems, their lifestyle impacting, you feel trapped, you're not sure where to go, and you feel like you can't start, you don't believe in it. So much time is spent on guilt in that. I've been this way so long. People get stuck in well, I've always been this way, so therefore I don't know any other way.
But you can, because it's a new day.
It is a new day. And then you might have to just start, I can't stress enough, like the thing where you just start acting like the person that you hope that you're going to be.
Yep.
Even though you don't think you're that person, you don't believe that you're that person yet. It's incredibly uncomfortable. It's scary. It's disruptive. It's all of those things. That's not failure. In fact, if you're going to feel disrupted and scary and uncomfortable, it probably means that you're moving in some direction as opposed to stuck.
Yeah.
Some direction.
There's a theory that the most uncomfortable parts of your life are the most progressive. You're making big, huge changes.
There's no doubt in my mind that is true. That is absolutely true. So, but so many people they'll gauge that and they start to take those steps. But I felt so bad doing it. Well, you're kind of supposed to feel bad when you make big changes. Not supposed to. There's no nobility in suffering. It's not that, but it means that you're in a place that you are now learning to be different in.
Yeah.
You're adapting to situations and building situations that you need to build. They're different. You got to learn from them. You have to adapt to them. You have to learn new ways to do things. And that's not easy.
I find excitement in the uncomfortability too. Like it's something different. It's something that I know is taking a step forward. So even though like I'm sitting here on this podcast right now, like sweating because I'm like nervous, but it's still something I'm super excited about doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, every time I've ever walked into a new room that I know is a good choice, like whether it be kickboxing or AA or whatever it is,
Right.
the uncomfortable feeling I choose to kind of embrace because I know it's almost like an adrenaline excitement thing too.
Has that always been you, or is that you for the last
No.
3 or 4 years?
Oh my God.
That was not you. You were the other way. No.
I was the shyest. I would never want to stand out. I would
Yeah.
never want to make a choice that wasn't, I really flew under the radar for a good portion of my life.
And now here you are. I mean, it sounds like sometimes, you know, my failing on this, like the cliche of that, like get comfortable being uncomfortable. I mean, how many times do we hear that nonsense posted? But there's truth in it.
100%.
It might get, you know, it might get overposted and things like that, but there's truth in that. So the discomfort is teaching you a lesson.
Yeah.
And the fact that you went from literally almost a completely different person, but the core of all the good stuff was still there.
It was always
there.
I just didn't have the confidence to really pull it up and let it shine. I was always kind of like the background singer or the best friend.
Yeah.
Or I was never the star. And I was second chair violin. Like, if I look back at my life, I always kind of took a back seat and didn't want to be really seen.
Yep.
And I think a lot of the choices I made, whether it be, you know, eating so much and kind of hiding behind that, or, you know, drinking so much. I mean, the drinking really, a lot of it was just a confidence thing. Like the start of that was because I wasn't confident. So I would drink and then, and it's all my family history and whatever. But
sure.
Yeah. I mean, all of that was really a blanket for just kind of keeping myself back because I wasn't sure really who I was and who I wanted to be. And once I got to a place where I was like, hey, I want to be that girl. I was like, well, go be that girl.
Right. There's no reason why you cannot be.
Yeah.
Were you always, you don't have to answer this. I'm going to ask it, but if you said I didn't want to answer, it would be perfectly
There's
fine.
pretty much nothing I won't answer.
Well, you know, you never know who's listening and that sort of stuff. But so many people will feel their own worst enemy. I just keep telling myself I can't. I'm my own worst critic.
Yeah.
Does that resonate
Oh, the
with you?
self-talk was bad for a long time.
Okay, but then at some point that becomes a choice.
Yeah.
Like I can now choose to not do that. So
Yeah.
people,
Well,
I find that all the time. Like, well, no, you know, I'm just my own worst critic. I'm just my own. But no, okay, I understand. You've said that to me now 15 times. So now it's time to do something about that. Right.
I had a lot of therapy growing up that kind of led me to where I'm at now. Therapy and a fantastic life coach who really changed my inner monologue.
Now I'm sweating.
Sorry.
It's all right. People are laughing right now. I know they are. I've met him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, it was a series of people that really helped guide me to a better mindset.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know we talked the other day about this revelation I had in therapy when I was like 18 years old.
Right. Which is like, I can't believe that was a revelation, but it was to you.
It was a huge revelation. I had somebody in my life who kept telling me I was a terrible person, that I was making horrible choices, that I was, you know, not good. And when I came to this realization in therapy that like, oh my God, that's their opinion, but it has absolutely nothing to do with really who I am. I know who I am.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, a series of those types of things have really taught me to have confidence in who I am and who I want to be.
I want to talk we're almost at a half hour, so we don't want to go too much longer, but we'll go as long as we want. How about that? It's my podcast. I'm going to make it as long as I want.
It's 100, man.
It's 100, man. We should be here for like a day. We're going to order in pizza. No, we're not.
No pizza.
I know. I shouldn't say pizza in front of you.
Cauliflower.
Cauliflower. There you go. Let's talk for a second about, I forget what I was going to say. That never happens. That never happens. I wanted to ask you a question about, we talked about the self-talk. Somebody was giving you that instruction that you were never going to be this person, but I know what it was. This wasn't, you did not invent a new Kendra, I think.
No, she was always there.
Right. Thank you. Because
Yes.
I mean, I know you long enough to know that what I basically saw is you peeled away some layers and let her out.
Yeah.
The real Kendra is now here.
Yep.
But I think it's important for us to say, like, so maybe you were always happy to be the best friend, the second player, the supporting actress, the second violin. Now you're kind of taking the first chair, which is effing spectacular, and I'm loving seeing it. But even if you chose to remain the second violin, at least you're making the choice out of a confident, not fearful place.
Exactly.
You're not hiding. So it doesn't mean you have to, if you're trying to overcome an anxiety disorder. Exactly. So it doesn't mean you have to invent a brand new you to fix this problem that you have. It just means you have to be okay with who the you is.
Right.
You know, whether you want to be the star in the show or you want to be a supporting player or you want to, whatever it is you want to be, just that when you can start living that comfortably and not as a defense mechanism or hiding or in a fearful way, that would make all the difference in the world, I got to believe.
Yeah. I mean, if I could go back and tell that little girl who like wouldn't stand an audition and really give it, like, I wish I could just tell her, like, just, you're amazing.
Yeah.
Just stand up and be who you want to be. I took those positions and choices out of fear.
Yeah. Yeah, out of fear. And now, I mean, you may choose sometimes to try and, you know, stand in the spotlight or not, but whatever way, it's an organic choice.
Yes.
It's not a fear-based choice. It's not an avoidance-based choice. So many good things happen when you're willing to make that step forward and almost leave behind the conditioning. And I think you can't leave it behind. You have to act the conditioning away. Yeah. So whether it comes internally, your own internal monologue that says that you're not smart enough, I'm not capable, I'm not brave enough. I hear it all the time from, you know, because I'm asking them to do scary things. I'm just not brave enough to do that. Yeah. Well, no, you probably are.
Well, I think
you just have to act like you are.
If you just turn that statement around, like all those things that you're like, well, I'm not this or that.
Right.
Just change the sentence. I am this. Just say it and see how that feels and try it on.
Right.
Or even, you know, a lot of times I'll tell people, you have to envision yourself as that person. And like whatever your method is, if you want to talk about it or write about it or draw it, whatever your thing is,
right. But
really put yourself in that mindset. Close your eyes and picture who that person is, what you look like in, you know, facing that scary fear.
Right.
Like really, really visualize it, because it really helps when you see yourself as that, in that position, as that person accomplishing that goal. You're almost like there already.
And you don't have to, I cannot say this enough, and you are just living proof, breathing proof in front of everybody right now. You don't have to believe it. Because everybody will, well, I don't believe it. Like, I hear you, but I don't believe it. You won't believe it. It's okay.
Yeah.
There is a certain amount of leap of faith in all of this that says, well, I don't believe it now, but I'm going to act like I do, and then I learn to believe it.
We're capable of absolutely anything we want.
I could not agree with that more.
It's just a mindset and a choice.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more. If I could put, and I think this is part of your jam too. If there could be, you know, anything that I would give people, you know, we're talking about, like, the last thing that I wrote in the book too is all about this. Like, if you're listening and you feel like you're not brave enough, it's not brave that you're missing. It's belief that you're missing. Like, everybody is built with brave, because if some horrific thing came up right now and one of your children was in danger or someone you love, you would be super brave. You wouldn't even think about it. You would run into the burning building and pull your dog out, or your kid or your husband or your mom. You would just do it. People do that every single day. So it's not bravery that you're missing. It's belief.
Yeah.
I think belief in yourself and belief in your ability to become a person that you think you're not.
Right.
And in the end, I'm looking at somebody who's done it, and, like, in a spectacular fashion. So jazz. Oh, we had life coaching and jazz hands in the same podcast. I need to go lay down. Anyway, but this was really good. This was really, really good. So I think, where can people find you? You have the Glowcast. Tell us about the new podcast, which has, like, the greatest name ever. I know you haven't released it yet, but it's awesome.
Tribe of Unicorns. I haven't released it yet, but I'm pretty excited about it. It's just for creative brains. Whether you're creative in your industry or your life, or just enjoy that type of conversation, that's going to be happening over there. I'm super psyched about that.
The Glowcast is good. Glowcast is also good. But so if you guys go to theanxioustruth.com/100, it'll be the show notes for this episode. And I will link over to Glowcast, the Glowcast is super inspirational, because Kendra gets to talk to some people who have been through some really, I was on Glowcast, so I was happy to be one of the first guests. Some people who have been through some really horrific stuff, who came out the other side and are now telling the tale of being happy that they went through it.
Yeah.
So if you guys
They
are
look at these
looking
things
for
as
like
a blessing.
inspiring tales, you know, check out the Glowcast. It's well worth the listen.
Right.
So I'll link you over there. And then when the Tribe of Unicorns is stampeding, I will make sure that link is working as well.
Yeah.
That's just the greatest name ever for a podcast. So thank you.
No problem.
Awesome. All right, peeps. Now I got to like fade in that music. If you've been listening, you know that is Afterglow by my friend Ben Drake. That's facebook.com/Ben Drake Music. Thank you, Ben, for letting me use it. And I guess I'll see you next week on episode 101. So thank you, Kendra.
Thank you.
See you guys later.
But I believe all you can do is try. And as the city stands 10 stories high, I'm gonna live my life. It's all around you, you can breathe it in. And this is where your story